So, you're looking at going away on holiday with your bicycle and you've just bought the EVOC Bike Bag Pro and you're looking to get your bike in there. This is just a guide on what I do and how I get my bike fitted into this bag. If you want to see an actual review of this road bike bag, then I'm going to link that in the description below. And that's just about what it's like to travel with, how it is to the airports, how well it functions. But this is how to get your actual bike into the bag itself. At the end of the video, I also have a time trial bike, so if you have a TT bike, I'm going to show you how to put that in there as well. It fits pretty much the same as this, so follow the normal steps, but I'll show you how mine fits in, because I just have to tuck the front down a little bit. I'm also going to show you how to get a few more bits and bobs in there, like a road bike track pump. I always take this with me because it's easier. Let's get started. So if you already have the bag set up, you'll notice that it stands up like this, but if not, it will be flat, and you have lots of these plastic bits here. You'll be able to figure out which ones they go into. They're just based on the different lengths and there's one for each side. But the easiest way to get the bike in the bag is to have all of them in, but you unload one side here. But you just take them out very slightly. Don't forget the ones at the ends, and then you can unzip the whole bag, and that way it will stay standing up, but look like that. What you will notice is that the zip is asymmetrical, so that you can see it's further over to the right-hand side on the video at the moment. So I would undo the ones on that side rather than the ones that I've done on this side. Otherwise, it may fall over. If you're still on the setup phase, there are these plastic bars that go in the center here. Once again, they just slide in. You can strap them on. I've never taken them out once they've gone in. Forget about everything else at the moment. You only need one thing, and that is the sliding rail at the bottom. Now these do have a specific side that they go into, so this front piece, the lower piece, will go into the one where it locks in here, and you can see where the buttons are, but this rear piece, the taller piece, can slide back and forth depending on the size of bike that you have. Now with this piece out, it is going to be as simple as replace your wheels onto here. These of course are for a disc brake bike, but if you have a rim brake bike like this one, it looks exactly the same, both the front and the back, but there's a skinnier hole there. It's much, much smaller. It will come with it, and all you have to do is pop them on there and press them on. I have mine on the higher one, just because I need to keep the chain ring off the floor. But these are very adjustable, so it's not always straightforward to begin with, but you spin them until this vertical slat here can come out. And once again, you can change the height that you need to. As long as your chain ring isn't touching the floor, you're going to be okay. Make sure you spin it back on to make sure it doesn't come out. Put your wheels to one side for now, and like I said, these axles just replace where your wheels go, and they should rest on nice and comfortably. So as you can see here, this is currently set up too short at the moment. The front of my bike goes too far over, so I'm going to have to pull the rails back a little bit, just so it fits on. Replace your through axles. When I put these back on, I don't do them up very tight, just because they don't need to be. One thing I'd highly recommend is if you do have your brake chocks still, which most of you should do, you can get these from any bike shop really, for any Shimano or SRAM product. This is obviously easier with two hands, but you then slide them into your brake, and that way once you've got it clipped in there properly, you can, if you accidentally pull your brake lever, you won't squeeze in your brake pad, so it's one less thing to do when you get there. You can see how close my chain ring is here to the floor. It's practically kissing it with the chain, but that's going to be just fine in there. Normally I travel with the chain off because I run a wax chain, so I normally put on a new chain as soon as I arrive. Okay, easy enough to replace the wheels. Now you can just lift your bike and pop it into the bag. This is a size 58 frame, and you can see that it fits in here fairly comfortably, but there is one thing that does not fit, and that is the saddle. Some of you will have a small enough bike where your saddle will sit here and you don't need to take it off. I personally have to. Some people like to lower the saddle, but I don't like to scratch up my seat post, so I take it off, and I'm going to show you how I do that now. So your bike will come with a few of these red straps. I use these red straps to place it on there. So you can see for me, Shimano, so I've got the Di2 cable attached there, I've got my air tag in there, but I spin it around and I rest the saddle on here. I've got loads of this pipe insulation stuff. This is dirt cheap from any store that you get. You don't have to use it, but for me it just stops any rattling, any tapping against the frame, and then I strap it down to one side of the rear triangle there, and that's stable enough. That's just going to hold there just fine. If you want to keep your saddle clamp safe, there's a little bag at the back here, and I tend to put it in there, along with any spare chains and spare tools that I like to carry with the bike. You have actually done most of the work now, so now what you'll be able to see is we have these long straps here, and these straps just stay over the top of the bike, and they have a clip underneath here. With that clipped in, you then need to pull it down or just pull it up until it's strapped on, until it's snug. You don't need, it's a carbon frame, you don't need it to be very tight. I can move it around a little bit, but it's just holding it down on there. Like I said, I'm not wrenching it till it's tight. It's just gonna, if the bike box goes upside down, it's gonna stop the bike resting on the handlebars. There is one that goes on the rear as well, same again, same kind of tightness on there. It sits just over the top, but really that front one's gonna be doing most of the work. If you've still got your saddle on, that of course will sit in front of the saddle and not come off, but you can see for me, it can slide off fairly easily. It's never been a problem for me personally. Speaking of that rear triangle, you can now protect it with this bad boy. It's just got Velcro on two sides, and if you want to unscrew it, then it gets wider. If you want to screw it in tighter, it gets narrower, but it goes between your rear triangle here. So it sticks on like that. And then of course, when you close this other side, it's gonna stick on there. So that's gonna stop any inward impact from touching the rear triangle. As you can see, my bike's a little bit far forward. If I just grab onto it, pull it back a little bit, and that lets that sit in there a lot more comfortably without touching the frame of my bike. Now, I'm not sure why I like to do this, but I like to strap it to one side. So you see you've got all these red hooks sitting on there. I just strap the bike to one side so it keeps that side nice and stable and stops the bike from moving a little bit more. You may have noticed that it comes with this thingy. This thing is for your handlebars. So you can see the clip that it's got on here. Undo that, over to your bars, and then clip it in underneath, pull it nice and snug, and I call it the bar bra. To be quite honest, I think it just protects the sides a little bit. I'm not sure it actually does that much, this one. You're basically nearly there. Your bike's practically in. You just have to get the wheels in now. So you've got your bike bags. They are the same on both sides. You just slide your wheels in. You might want to remove this temporarily for a bit. I tend to put the discs or the disc rotors facing inwards on the bike. That way, if it does take any impacts, you don't damage any of your disc rotors. And that can then slide onto either side of the bike. So if I go on the back side first there, you can see that it goes forwards into the front compartment. If I get a close up, so it sits in front of the pedal there and just stays in the front there. I would recommend deflating your tires a little bit just so they're not such a high pressure. You can put them as a really low pressure. Just whilst you're on the plane, as you go up into the sky, the pressure is obviously going to increase in there. You just don't want to do any damage. Now you can see that wheel fits fairly snug in there. I do tend to tuck it underneath the top strap. I don't think you have to. And you can see that it rests just on this side here and the pedal sits underneath there. Personally, I don't take my pedals off when I travel with this bike box, and neither do I take off my rear derailleur. However, some people do. If you want to be extra safe, you can simply unscrew your derailleur bolt and take off your pedals, and that should make the bike box a bit safer. But like I said, I've traveled about 30 times in this thing and it's been just fine. Now it seems pretty tight in here, but I promise there is extra space. You have a lot of extra space up in this corner here, and you have a lot of extra space up in the front here, and you also have a bit of extra space underneath the fork and in between the wheels right there. So I mean, you could put your helmet there. I tend to get some of my cycling clothes, put them in a plastic bag and stuff them in some of these spaces, just so the bike box can carry a little bit more. Maybe if I'm doing a triathlon, the wetsuit might sit in this space here and just rest on top of the bike, but I make the most of it. You're probably taking bottles with you, so you can store your bottles in here whilst it's traveling. Just gives you more space in your suitcase or your carry-on bag. You can also fit a track pump in here. When I put my track pump in, I do tend to just foam up all the hard bits so first of all the cable doesn't move around as much, and of course I'm not damaging my bike frame. But like I said, I've taken this with me every single time and the frame has been just fine. If I take the tyre out to begin with, maybe unclip this guy. You can rest the frame in the bottom here, put your wheel bag back in, and then I tend to strap down this as well. So you'll need a bit of extra length there. Give everything a shuffle round, so like don't just rest it in the position you have at the start. So for me, I tend to have my disc rotor sit in between the fork and the frame there. That way it doesn't bend. Also with this, like I said, I just make sure that the foam is resting on the frame. And honestly, I've done this loads of times. It won't move around much. It won't even go up and down because, well, it can't exactly move much further than that. So it shouldn't hit your frame. Now you're in a good position just to zip the whole thing up. So it should enclose very nicely. And then you can start to slide your plastic pieces back in to keep the sides of the box rigid. This is one thing that is super easy to forget, but this gets stored in this zip bag here. So you take this off, and this is just right before you're about to put it on the belt on oversized luggage before you fly. So you put that in there, zip it up, and then just make sure that you don't lose it. You can of course use that as a handle as well, but do it before it goes on the belt. Super easy to forget. If you are a SRAM user, you can disconnect your battery, so obviously just take the batteries out. If you're a Shimano user, you can either disconnect the battery if you're taking your seat post out, or you can go onto the app and put it into travel mode, so that way if any buttons get pressed, you won't lose all your battery. I actually don't do any of that, but for me, I just bring the charging cable with me, just in case it does run out of battery on the flight. But like I said, it hasn't before, and hopefully it doesn't happen for you. You can see that for my time trial bike here. The front shifters just about go in. They are fine. I've traveled with this one 3 times now in this bag, and I have pushed the bike all the way to the back there, but it does survive okay. This is a medium large with the bars pushed very far forwards from Orbea. If you go any bigger, you won't be able to get it in without either pushing these bars back. I do have to take the seat post off on the TT bike, but otherwise the process is exactly the same to get your time trial bike in there. And there we go, you're now ready to travel with your EVOC Bike Bag Pro. Your whole bike's in there, you've got your wheels in there, you've got your pump in there, probably your helmet, probably some extra cycling clothes, probably your bottles, all packed in there nicely, ready to roll. If you have any other tips and stuff like that you guys use to travel with this bike, please let me know in the comments down below. But like I said, I've traveled with this thing 30 times now. Bike's been fine. You can see it's a bit beaten up on the corners and things like that. Bike's still totally fine. And yeah, I hope you have a very good holiday. If you have any specific questions, you can always ask me in the comments below, or find me privately over here on Instagram. Have a fun travel holiday with your bike. I'll see you in another video.